Thank you, Ankita. That was really warm welcome. And thank you everyone for taking out the time to come in on a working day on a Friday evening to listen to this. So when I started the preparation for this particular, and when Murli approached me and he's like, Anuradha, let's talk about something. And I said, okay, so what is something that we would want to, be really keen? And then that I don't know, empathy kind of immediately came to my mind. Empathy immediately came to my mind, and I said, okay, but what do we say which had not been said so far? And then I said, okay, but in our daily work, in our daily way of interacting with people as professionals, and that can be in any sphere, not necessarily in the communication domain, but across spheres, what is something that is kind of binding us in these tough times? It is communicating. It is telling each other our little stories, anecdotes, kisse, kahaniya, etc. So immediately I said, okay, let's do it about empathetic storytelling. And you know what? We will not throw these big words out there. We will say it very simplistically, what I've been trying to tell you through this session now. And that is going to be hearing from the other side. So I'll go ahead and project my screen. Ankita, just give me a shout out once you're able to see my screen.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll be a little louder. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the disruption. So what is today's story going to be like? So what does this mean? What does hearing from the other side mean? What was storytelling back then, and what is it now? What are the pitfalls if you choose to disregard the evolution of storytelling? If you choose to not embrace this particular aspect of change, empathy and empathetic storytelling. A little bit on that. How can we bring that up? What will it bring to the table, and some caveats associated with it? And in the end, of course, let your weekend begin. It's a Friday evening everywhere. So, also at the end of this, I have one request. If any of you would want to share any particular little anecdote or story from your end that got you thinking or reminded you of someone that happened during the course of this talk, I would really encourage you to come and share that. That would be really, really very encouraged and really very nice for all the participants. So hearing from the other side. So hearing typically has a story. It has a storyteller and it has listeners. So that is essentially those are essentially the three components of any part of a storytelling exercise. So who was on the other side all this meanwhile? We were talking about employees. If we are talking in an organization, which could mean it can be your team, people who you're working with, who are reporting into you. It can be your boss or seniors, people with whom you're working day in, day out on a one-on-one basis. Or it can be colleagues, people who you do not work with very very closely, but they know that you exist and you know they exist. So that kind of a thing. Then there are customers which are there. So there are end customers, there are partners, there are distributors. This is the kind of gamut of customers which are there. There are suppliers, there are communities. So these were all predominantly, these were a large chunk of people on the other side. Now, of course, whenever you're communicating, it can be with a much larger audience than this also, which can have your media, academia, etc. In the part of my presentation, I'm not covering any examples to do with them, which is why I've not placed them on the screen. But of course, all of us understand that there's a much larger audience than the one we're talking right now. So they were always there on the other side. So now who's there on the other side? I mean, what has changed? Why are we even discussing this now? Now, allied with them in their very space ecosystem and during their work hours are existing their families, which means their spouse, children, parents, pets, siblings, live-in helps, etc. They have their partners who may be staying with them. They have their roommates which they may be staying with them. All of these people are now on the other side. And a question to ask will be very legit. That why should I care? I mean, I was always doing my work with these people, these identified set of people. They're still the people who I work for or work with. So what has changed? So I'll take a pause. After my next slide, we will go ahead and discuss that. So why the emphasis now on the storytelling? This is The content on this slide is something that all of us have heard in our own organizations or have experienced it in varying measures across. Physical impact, it has been there on everybody. So I'll take a very short while on this. We're exhausted, we're tired, we're working from home, we're working for home. All of us, men, women, across all age groups, are doing their own bit to kind of keep the whole machinery running. The fear of the pandemic is, of course, overlooming all of us. The mental impact has been, there has been very less or no me time as such. And that is something that I have seen everybody complain. I mean, either it's people who are staying alone, who are staying alone. So the concept of me time has gone because now it is just one sort of arrangement, or the people staying with, like I said, family, spouses, family, spouse, partners, roommates, where there's no concept of me time. You're working, you get up, you get on something else. Even when you're sitting alone, you may not be necessarily alone at that point of time. There's no distinction between work and home because work has entered our house. There are increased amount of stress levels. I'm sure most of us are going through this challenge where, while we're ending a meeting at 6 in the evening, 7 in the evening, and what we're thinking is, what should be cooked for dinner? I'm really not sure. I've been making the same thing over and over again. The family is being sweet, they aren't complaining, but I need to make something fresh. Or you're getting into a meeting and you're like, it's the time to walk my dog. It's 6:30. How do I manage that? I'm sure this meeting is going to get stretched beyond 7:30. How do I manage that? So there are these inherent thoughts which are in your mind because you are in the same place and you have to deliver at both the ends. You have to ensure that none of the sides fall flat, which is why the stress levels have gone up. Sleep cycles are affected. This I've been hearing from quite a lot of people. Yes, people have in place greater emphasis on physical well-being, where people are working out, they're doing their own thing, etc. But sleep cycles are definitely affected. The erstwhile fatigue which kind of used to set in, and the body clock, that has kind of gone for a toss, which is something that I've heard over and over again. And one thing is, yes, there's too much exposure to news. News is good. It's important at this point of time. But sometimes we really have to know when to shut off. We can't be listening about the numbers, about the crisis, about the wars, about the job losses over and over again all the time. Just before you're starting work, so with breakfast, after you've ended work, at dinner, there's just too much of exposure of news, and not just on TV. You talk about WhatsApp, you talk about your social media channels, you talk about talking to people, you talk about your neighbors, you talk about society groups. There is just too much of news. And then, of course, all of this has put an emotional impact also on us, where our mental well-being is compromised, adhering to the factors which were erstwhile spoken about. There are wrong venues of venting out. So there are people who do not vent out, but then sometimes it has to come out. It may not come out in the best possible manner. That irritation can come out on your on your child, on your pet, on your living help, on your team members, sometimes even your boss, where you're just not ready to take in more work and you say enough is enough. How much will you bombard me, because now I don't have the commute time, so I will sit and work. So therefore there are the improper avenues of venting out. And I'm sure quite a large population amongst us might also agree to the fact that it is also owing to the fact that now those after office beer parties have vanished. They're not there, where you would go blow off some steam and come back all ready for the weekend to take care of the family. Those typical chai and smoke breaks have been eliminated. So all of that is there. This kind of brings in the spirits which are low. And of course, all of us are in the fear of uncertainty ahead. Nobody knows what's kind of lying ahead. So this kind of summarizes on what the situation is at this point of time. I am not negating, saying that there are good aspects of it where people have said that they get to spend time with family, etc. Yes, of course they do. But yes, that also kind of comes with its own different challenges, which I've kind of tried to put in. Of course, there are upsides to it, but yes, there are a lot of downsides to it, which I've tried to put in. So what does all of this mean for storytelling? While you thought the intended recipient for your communication, and again, when I say communication, it's not just emails or it's not just any means of communication, the intended recipient of your story being spoken, being shared in any format, versus the actual recipient we just saw. the people who started to exist further in the ecosystem much closer than they were earlier doing. So the intended recipient versus the actual recipient is different. Therefore, the intended message versus the actual message might be very different than what you think. You might think that this is what I'm trying to tell, but the person ahead, with all the clouds, everything that is going on, may hear it in a different fashion. And therefore, the intended interpretation may be different from the actual interpretation, guided by discussions, guided by any sort of a reaction that your story may have triggered. And I will explain this with an example. So just hang on with me for the next 30 seconds. And then the intended action may be very difficult, very different from the actual action that you would expect somebody to take. Let me give you this example. A lot of organizations these days are trying to tell their employees to take leaves and take breaks because that has really kind of gone down. And I had a friend of mine working on a different organization and managing a team. So he was sharing this with me. He one day told his team that, guys, you really have to plan your leave. We can't place everything at the end of the year because we really have to space it out. So why don't you take a leave and then let me know when you'll be taking a leave at the start of the month, the start of July at that point of time. So 2 or 3 of his reports came back the next week and told them that, okay, this is the date when I would want to take a leave. There was a third reportee of his who went down in a very downward spiral. Now it's a very normal conversation. Plan your leave so that we plan our work. Nothing stops. You need to take breaks. On the face of it, very normal conversation. What that employee heard was, yeah, okay, you want me to take a leave? Of course, I will take a leave. I understand I have too many accumulated, can't push everything to the end of the year and then carry forward. Bhi nahi hongi. So what do I do? What will I do with my leaves? Where will I go? Happen to discuss that with the spouse. Boss is asking for a couple of leaves. How do we plan this? The spouse happened to say, yeah, but I don't even know when will the lockdown open, when will things be okay for us to really travel and go anywhere or do anything like that. So how do we manage? I mean, so you see, when do you want to take a leave? The entire weekend, that employee spent a lot of time in a lot of worry, in a lot of depression, thinking, what has life come to? I'm doing well. I'm doing good for my career. My spouse is doing well for her career. And why? Why are we still not able to enjoy life? Interpretation. That was the interpretation of the message, which was as simple as started with the fact, guys, plan your leaves. And then from that, the action that came, the person came back and said, okay, you wanted me to take leave, but I've been very upset. I do not know. I don't think I can really take on the work that is lined up for this particular week. Can you really help me with this? I really need my load reduced because I'm not at a very good place in my head right now. This is what happened. It was as simple as that. But this is what it kind of spiraled. The story was just this much: take leaves. Therefore, communicating and branding the right story has become more critical than any other time. What are the pitfalls if we decide not to embrace this change? And I mean, all of us are free to do that. But you'll be thought as somebody who's very self-centered in that regard. There'll be a mistrust that will happen with the people that you're communicating or trying to establish a connect with. You may also be perceived as being manipulative. There'll be a resistance to reception of your ideas. You may be perceived as being insensitive. You will be perceived as somebody who's non-inclusive. And probably there is a high chance that the relationships which we have or which we want to establish may be of very transactional nature. Example, you call up a customer one day and you, of course, you can't meet them because they are sitting in their house and you're sitting in yours. So you call up a customer one day and then you say that, hey, Mr. So and so, you know what, I mean, we have not spoken for such a long time, so how are you being, etc. My numbers are really really difficult. Can you really do something? I know that there's an order coming in from your side next month, but can you move it to this month now? Can you really help me with that, etc. And that person himself at the other side, which at quite a few number of times maybe a purchase person, will have his own pressures. His organization might be going through a restructuring, might be going through some really severe cost pressures, due to which not only his targets but in fact his job might be in jeopardy as well. You have not bothered to really understand what his situation is or show any kind of interest in that. that will spiral in being a very transactional relationship. He may say, okay, yes, why not? I look at it, call me in 15 days. You never know whether your call gets answered or not. You may be perceived as somebody being very self-centered. Yeah, okay, all you want to do your numbers. But do you know where my organization stands? Do you know what are my challenges? You really can't expect me to do all of that. The person will be resistant to the idea that our salesperson here is pitching. So therefore, yes, it's a slippery slope. We need to be very, very careful. With all these pitfalls, the question that comes in is, okay, but yeah, I'm not God. I do not know everything. So sitting here, how do I know? How do I know that the person with whom I'm trying to communicate or reach out is going through anything like that? How am I supposed to know? The answer is you don't. You don't. It's not expected. It's absolutely understandable that you do not know what is going on the other side completely. And therefore empathy is very, very important in this case. And I will talk a little bit on why. So according to a psychology professor, Brent Brown, empathy is communicating that incredibly healing message. And this, what I have put in on the slide over here, is something that you can practice with anybody and everybody. Is the message of saying, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. All of us are in this together. Is the message, I understand. Is the message of saying, you can trust me. You can share with me. Maybe I have something for you, or maybe I can just lend you a patient ear. It's a message of saying, it gets better. Let's choose to believe that it will get better from here. And in the end, also motivating and saying, you can do it. Don't worry, you can do it. Empathy is one of the key components of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, of course, has been spoken over the decades so much about the fact that how important it is as a leadership skills. Empathy really helps us to create a very peaceful and a very just world. And that is something which I think everybody needs in this whole time of unrest and panic and uncertainty, the whole VUCA environment that we keep calling. So now, with this basic definition of empathy, and I'm sure most of us know what it stands for, let me come to empathetic storytelling. Before I move in there, I want to repeat something that I started my conversation with all of you, saying that while you're listening to what you're listening in the next few slides, I'll be really happy if you can think of a person, an incident, a character, and that can be in real life or real life. And if you can share with us some story of empathy that he's or she has exhibited that has moved you or stayed with you, I think that is something that is going to be very interesting. Or just by being a very empathetic person, he or she has been able to make a difference to somebody else and that has stayed with you. Because that is the essence of empathetic storytelling. So, what does it mean? With empathy in the background as storytelling, since we all as kids have been very fascinated by it and that's in our genesis, we know. What does it mean? It means keeping yourself in the shoes of the receiver. Simply. As simple as that. Before you say something, before you communicate through any channel to anybody, try to find out what that person may hear. Try to understand what that person may hear from that story. Therefore, what is the likely interpretation that can happen? Again, not asking us to be mind readers, but by using simple tactics of seeing how the conversation is going and being very natural at it. Interpret and think of some possible scenarios that can arise. Analyze and then communicate. Having said that, I do not mean that we go on telling impressive story about big numbers, about chivalry, about courage. No, not required. We are not trying to overwhelm our listener and we're not trying to impress them with that. And most certainly, flattery, no. It's an absolute no no. You can't go and say, oh, I know you will do it. Yes, you can say that, it'll get better and I'm sure you can handle this. But putting an extra pressure on somebody and saying that, I know that you will do it is putting some extra pressure and they may not be really taken well. So This also brings me to another aspect where I was reading a little bit about improv comedy. I did not know too much about improv, to be honest. And improv comedy, I understood when I was watching this show, Comic Stan, last year on Amazon Prime, and then they would talk about improv comedy. What is improv comedy? Improv comedy is when you become a different person. You carry your own individuality, but you personify somebody else. You're enacting somebody else, and you're picking up from the part where the other person left. So that is something that needs to be practiced in empathetic storytelling also. For example, um, it's important to be very empathetic. And if you're a Democrat, but you're asked to talk about a Republican, it's difficult, right? But then for this gamut to really be on your side, you will have to do this. Not asking to change your thoughts, but asking you to communicate in a manner where you can relate with them. I will give a very India specific example, and probably that is something that quite a few of us will be able to relate with. With the whole unrest happening, that ban Chinese products and everything, and all the requisite measures being placed by the government, were still some people who were saying that, oh, but my Chinese phone is doing so well. What do you want me to do? You want me to throw it or what? We are not asking you to throw it. Nobody's asking you to throw it. But I think being empathetic to the fact that, okay, the country is in a particular political situation, there is a sentiment which is kind of getting risen. You don't have to resist it, but maybe there will be a time when you can talk about your own Chinese phone, and where it is going to be. I mean, it's not okay right now also, but where it's going to be okay again for such things to prevail. So therefore, it's very important that this whole story that we're telling, any sort of a communication that we're doing, we're being empathetic to the circumstances of the listener, of the recipient of our communication. So with all of that given, how do I hear from the other side? And before I go to some actions and some behaviors, I would just want to share a little bit of story with you, a little bit of anecdote with you. On a Wednesday morning or a Wednesday afternoon, typically, let's say 2 o'clock, you're in the middle of your work. It's a full 5 day week and everything. It's a regular day. You get an email where you're being appreciated by one of your customers, and the customer says that, great job, thank you so much. The delivery reached us well in time. I think your effort in ensuring that the delivery reached was something which was very exemplary, and I would really want to continue business with your firm with a sales guy like you being on the other side. It happens on a Wednesday, 2 o'clock. You're in the middle of a lot of your work and everything. Do you have the bandwidth to really give it that sort of attention and give yourself that sort of a credit and celebration that you can probably at any other given point of time? With this, imagine getting this email on a Friday evening. You're about to end work, you're about to get into a weekend, etc. And you're like, okay, now at least for 2 days, I don't have to think about office too much. I really have to just focus on home. And then something like that kind of comes in. The same email comes in. Then you're like, wow, okay. Could you make my weekend any better? That is going to really charge you up for the weekend. That is going to keep the smile prolonging over the weekend for the great amount of effort that you put in those 5 days, the extra hours, burning the midnight oil, etc. That is the effect it will have on your weekend. Now imagine the same email comes and hits your inbox on a Monday morning at 10:30, when you just started your day, planning your day ahead, putting your to-dos in place, etc. It comes to you on a Monday morning. And then you're like, okay, great. Wow, okay, what a start to the week. Thank you so much. I mean, it's really appreciated. Probably on a Friday evening, you could not call the customer and thank him for that particular, for such kind words. But on a Monday morning, you have that avenue because everybody's working. You call them up and then you say, thank you so much. And then you kind of charged for the whole week. You kind of charged for the coming times. There have been studies which have shown that this timing of really putting yourself in the other person's shoes and thinking that what is this communication going to have an effect on my receiver has been rated differently. Try doing it on a Monday morning before your teammate has even logged in, before your supplier has even started his day, before the NGO to whom you're going to cut a big fat check from your organization has started their day. Try doing that on a Monday morning. It's really, really effective and really impactful. I'm sure all of us will just, I'm sure most of us will reckon with this. With that, I would like to speak of a little bit of action that we can take when we're trying to hear from the other side. So what do we essentially do? It's important to listen. Listen while the communication is still in your thoughts. It's important to show emotion. You just can't, and that is going to be one of the phrases I'm going to use more often than not, which says, thankfully, we are not overtaken by the robots as yet, which means we're still talking to human beings. We're still talking to people. And therefore, empathy, which is such a vital quality of humanitarian behavior, cannot be taken off. So, therefore, it's important that you show some sort of an emotion. Show that you're upset by this behavior. Show that you are excited by this behavior. Show that you are indifferent to something that happened externally, and therefore you can even protect your team in certain situations. Remove the biases. A lot has been said about diversity, about inclusion, and that's a separate topic in its own. I'm sure, given the way corporates are trying to operate now, that sort of a discussion has touched us somewhere or the other, which is beautiful. And I think all of us are in a different journey and at different levels when it comes to removing biases. We all come with our, we're brought up in a certain way, we have been conditioned in a certain way, education, information, everything has shaped us in a different manner. But it's very important then when you're trying to really listen from the other side, remove those biases that kind of are hovering your thoughts most of the time. Give your full attention, very much required. Parents on the group may agree with me. You're working, I mean, of course, working from home here. So, you have your child sitting out there. And it's 8 in the evening. Now, it's 8 in the evening, it's getting close to dinner time and everything. And then you just tell your son or your daughter, why don't you just have food? I will quickly join you in some time and I will keep going. And then they're like, no, 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 I want to have it with you only, mom or dad. No, no, you only have to feed me. And I'm like, okay, okay, yeah. You pick up your laptop and you go and sit on the dining table with your laptop. And then you're trying to feed the child, trying to have a basic conversation, thinking, okay, have you done your homework? I think the numbers are not matching. No, that is putting a very, very negative impact. Of course, that's sending out a message where it's saying that, I do not care. So give your full attention. Consider other people's perspective. Very important. If we hear from the other side, verbal cues, non-verbal cues, video calls, etc., when we're doing, consider other people's perspective. Now I think it's much more important than all the other times, because we are all in such a new state, the new normal, the unprecedented times that we've been talking about, that it is, you never know where an idea comes from, you never know what formula works what time. So therefore, be receptive, be open to other people's perspective. Like I said, timing, the story that I just told you, I mean, timing is definitely very important. The tone, the medium. Understand the fact you're not sitting with the person across the table and having a conversation with your customer, with your supplier, with your NGO partner, with some children who've come and asked you for some sort of a mentorship. If you're trying to really mentor some professionals, they're not sitting across the corner. Your team is not sitting. So therefore, it's very important that the timing, tone, medium is very, 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 very judiciously picked up. At this point of time, I think we're spoiled for choices much more than any other time, where we can communicate by any means that we would want, except for face-to-face communication. You have your one-way communication that can happen over mass media. So you can send out podcasts. You can send out podcasts to your employees and they can just hear you out. You have your emails, which again is a one-way communication. You have virtual town halls, which are doing rounds. We have webinars like this, like how you and I are connecting. So there are a plethora of mediums available. Are you aware and have you judiciously decided on what medium suits what sort of a communication? Let me give you the small example. You are a team leader and you're managing a team of about 6 to 7 people, and there has been some change in the plan and something on the home front requires attention, and you know that it's a Thursday, and next Monday to Friday, next whole week, you're not going to be in office, you'll not be able to really take calls or be available on emails as much, so you're going to be on leave. Would you choose to really put in that over just a text message to your team on a WhatsApp group saying, guys, planned a leave, it wasn't scheduled, but will be unavailable all next week? Or would you rather tell them that, guys, we need to have a meeting, I'm planning something actually for the next week, so let's get together and discuss on how can whatever bottlenecks are there at my end, they can be removed, and plan a meeting the next day, or in fact plan a meeting as much as frequent as possible for that matter. So it's very important that the medium you choose to communicate that information is very, very well thought out. Otherwise, there's one employee who's being happy, oh yeah, the boss is not there, thank God, some less pressure. There's this other employee who's thinking, oh my God, but I have so much pending with him or her, how do I close that? I mean, how can they suddenly vanish? Your credibility is at stake, right? If somebody thinks you're suddenly vanishing. There's an employee who's thinking, oh my God, now I'll have to work directly with boss's boss, but that's going to be difficult. Am I even ready for that? I'm sure my boss must have taken a difficult call because there's not a planned leave, but am I ready for that? So therefore, the medium, if you bring them together, understand what each of them has been going through. Once you tell them that you're not going to be available for a week, 10 days, and then address their concerns. Be very empathetic in trying and breaking the news, as simple as your absence, as your temporary absence at one given point of time. And don't panic. Please don't panic. It's okay. I mean, like I said, we're all in this together. We can't be panicking about what is happening. Yes, we have to be careful. We have to be judicious. But let us not panic, and let our actions not show that we are panicking about something. A very, very close example of this, and I'm sure a lot of people must have seen this. You're working on a typical afternoon and then it comes on the news, or you kind of get to hear. I think it happened last Friday, if I'm not wrong. And the news came in that Pune is going to go into a lockdown, and Saturday the news came that Bangalore is going to go into a lockdown, etc. So with that happening, you're in the middle of a work day, and then some of us are in a meeting. So suddenly somebody says that, oh, okay, I just got a message, and of course it's from a credible source that the lockdown is going to happen. It's all over the news also. Listen, I'm going. I don't know, yeah. When are they going to shut the vegetable shops, and when are the moors and the star bazaars, everything are going to shut down? I better go and run. These are the actions that you're taking. You can also say that, I think there'll be a lot of rush. Can I just excuse myself? I think I would want to go and do that before everybody comes out on a weekend and does it. So I will go. But you've just panicked. You've just shown that side. So therefore, the person who's sitting in front of you might also replicate that action. It might also get into a spiral that, oh, maybe even I need to do something like that. So while there are actions, there are virtues. And I wonder some of you may know this gentleman who's on my screen. He is Michael Scott from the very funny, popular series The Office. No, I don't think that he was a perfect boss, but I think he was a very good individual, very great individual, very different, which is why I've kind of kept this. So the virtues that we're trying to show is trust that we have with the various stakeholders that we're communicating, genuine care that we have for these people, which is why we're even going ahead and putting ourselves in their shoes. It's okay to show vulnerabilities, and which is why I've kind of put in here. It's okay to say that I do not know the answer. Yeah, I'm also worried. It's okay to show vulnerabilities. It's okay to show them transparently, because transparency brings in trust. It's important that we are flexible. Many a times you might just call up a team member and say that this is not done. We had agreed on 4 deliverables, only 3 have been done. It's a Friday evening. What are you doing? But then a couple of hours ago, you found out that, oh, the poor chap could not sleep the whole previous night because they are a young parent at this point of time. The child did not let the parents sleep through the night. Kids sometimes just have a mood of their own or have been unwell. So be flexible. If it's not something which is burning, we can always push it to a Monday. I'm sure organizations have now become overtly flexible and accommodating of such sort of a request. In fact, just this morning I was reading an article where a top boss at HCL has given an interview. And he said that empathy was one of the strong virtues that kept us afloat towards our employees. Empathy was something that we have exhibited and have tried to inculcate that very, very consciously in the nature of our team managers so that they are able to take it further down to the people.
That's
So this, I believe, is how we can do it. What does this bring? So, I mean, I think by joining all the blogs that we've done so far, we'll be able to really say, what does this bring? It brings trust. It brings collective growth. It brings mental well-being, a topic spoken over and over again, gaining much, much more popularity. I also know of organizations, you know, the teams in the organizations which run a psychological cell where people have been getting more and more calls because people are really dealing with issues. And now, like I said, with the space being less to show them out, they're reaching out to different avenues. But if you as a person are able to give that avenue to somebody else, that is going to ensure some sort of a mental well-being, and you may be just doing your own little bit in ensuring somebody is feeling better on that particular day at that particular instance. You do not know how long away that can go. The information that you're trying to give sticks because, like I said, you're doing this improv. It's a story. The story has a character. You have your own role to play, so therefore the way it is given, the information will stick. The interpretation becomes realized and not imposed. I can go on and say, this is what happened, this is what it means. So, therefore, I'm imposing an interpretation to it. The interpretation, if you work as a collective group, as somebody who's empathizing and trying to send out a message accordingly, the interpretation will become realized. It will be towards a common agenda and not just your own agenda which you're trying to push. There'll be higher willingness to act amongst teams, with your customers, with your communities, neighbors, friends, etc. You will be able to curb rumors, which will stop unrest within your teams, within your employees, within your customers, which will curb panic if you stay in touch with them. So, I mean, imagine you're a critical component supplier today and you know, there's a rumor in the market, oh, they're going to shut shop. And you call up one of your customers and you say, sir, listen, your payments haven't come, you know, your payments of the second quarter, they still haven't come. And we're talking about July end now. So I would really expect you to release the payment. And then the person is thinking, oh yeah, maybe they're really shutting down, which is why they need all the money back immediately. Vis-a-vis a phone call with, hey sir, how have you been? Yes sir, yes sir. I don't know. I mean, let's see, business is, yeah, really shaky, but I think all of us are in the same boat at this point of time. So let's see how that kind of pans up. So I was just wanting to check on the payments that have not come. I understand, sir, it's a difficult time for all of us, but you know, it'll be really helpful if you can release those payments, sir. I mean, is there anything that I can do? Is there any other documentation that I can support you with, or anybody in your finance team I can speak to, etc.? That is going to really show them that no, they still care about their people. And then that person might open up and say, by the way, you know, I have heard something that you guys are not going to be in business. No, sir, that purely seems like a rumor to me. Organization, yes, like every organization is shaky at this point of time, but our management and our leadership is strong enough to sail through this. So that is not happening. So that helps to curb rumors. It ensures a better engagement. All these examples that I gave you will help you get a better engagement with your team, gain a better support from your own team, from your customers, from outside external parties. Um, we have been reading a lot about the various media layoffs which have been happening. Imagine just calling up a, a person who you know has been a part of one of the publishing houses and has been asked to leave, and just checking on them. You may not have a job opportunity for them, but as a PR professional where you've always dealt with them and they've worked with you very closely, you just call them up and you say that, you know, I heard this and I'm really sorry. I'm sure something better is going to happen. I'm not sure how much I can do for you, but why don't you just send the CV to me anyways? I will float it in my network, and I'm sure you have a great network too. That is going to go a very long way. And yeah, empathy helps us gain a great perspective and bring a balanced approach. Like I said, once we remove the biases, we're more open, more receptive. Our mind is much more free to assimilate what is coming our way. So therefore, we get a better perspective of things. We get a better understanding of things. So this was all about empathetic storytelling and hearing from the other side even before it is spoken. This, like any other phenomena in the world comes with certain caveats. And that is something that I would want to now bring out as a part of this. The urge to share an emotion. Somebody you're talking to has been upset about his road being sealed off because a case has been found positive in the neighborhood. You can do something to uplift the mood and have a positive, fruitful, healthy, cheering conversation. But don't get so sucked up in the situation that it brings you further down. The urge to change the situation, many a times you will not be able to change the situation. You know, you will only be able to hear, understand, empathize, act on it, tell them that it's going to get better, and move on. Distraction from the goal. That is something that we really have to be careful. Whatever said and done, guys, it's all of us have certain goals which are set by an organization for all of us. The work may move from a Friday to a Monday, but the work may not be in a position to be moving from a Friday until next Friday or the week after that. Yes, many a times we'll be able to delegate, many a times we'll be able to, put it on the back burner as a second priority. Many a times we may not be able to do that. If we are not emotionally intelligent in pulling ourselves back from somebody's situation, then we tend to get distracted from the goal, which is a real challenge. Hampering our own mental and emotional well-being, like I just said, don't get bogged down. Everybody is going through their own challenge. Empathize with them, understand, and move on, because you certainly have your own set of challenges. Which brings me to my next point. If you are too sucked up in the situation, if you are too involved in the situation, or are you trying to actively change the situation without realizing that some aspects of it may be beyond your control, that might lead to an emotional generosity burnout. By emotional generosity burnout, what I would mean is a typical giver taker syndrome. In any sort of a relationship, professional or personal, there are givers and there are takers. If you're only giving, one day you will feel empty. And that is the burnout that you are likely to head for if you are empathizing over and above a certain level. If you're empathizing and not becoming a third person, but actually becoming a second person in the whole scenario. And very importantly, workplace ethics and code of conduct violation. A supplier calls you one of the days and he says that, sir, my business is really not doing well. You're one of my key customers, and while I'm trying to really make this call and talk to all of the other customers, I would even want to talk to you and tell you that, sir, can you really help me? I know that there was stuff that you were going to pick up in the month of October, but can you really move it to the previous quarter, and can I really do something about it? And you don't have to go and say that yeah, okay, my challenge is, now imagine having this conversation. Yeah, okay, I can do that. I can look at picking up some stuff in the third quarter instead of the fourth quarter. But listen, your prices are really high. But the quality that we come in is different. I understand, but your prices are really high. Let me tell you, the other one has been quoting these numbers. That is workplace ethics and code of conduct violation. While empathizing with someone, do not violate that. You do not burn your house to provide heat to somebody who's feeling cold. And that is the point that I'm trying to make. Please, workplace ethics and code of conduct is above everything in an organization. And it's very important that we take that seriously. And in our attempt to empathize with the person, to not get sucked onto this. Remember, look at the picture which is there on the right hand side corner. You're not Santa Claus. You're not expected to bring happiness, cheer, joy to everybody. You can't do that. What you can do is be there, support as much as you can, and then focus on your own thing. Very important. So therefore, remember, you're not Santa Claus. That brings me to the end of this particular discussion. This is my last slide. In the current times, everyone is desiring normalcy. Everyone is desiring a good news. Use what you have at hand to do that as much as you can, only if you can. False promises is something that we're not expected to make at any given relationship, personal or professional. Use smileys, use emoticons, use emojis, use all of that. Spread cheer, show emotion, be real, be vulnerable, show your human side. That is something that is going to take us a long way in these times, especially when we're not sitting one-on-one. Some of you may be curious to see what I've put on the right hand side. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old, and we just finished reading Sudha Murthy's grandma's bag of stories earlier this summer. And I saw that how grandma would have these 4 grandchildren that came to her every summer, and how she would take any particular situation and put in a story there that would have some easy assimilatable learning to it, something pretty easy. And I think that is what kind of kept grandma engaged with the children so much. She never gave them the jargon and the gyan data to my life mein ye karna chahiye. No, she never did that. She took real life situations, put them in the manner of a story, understood what the child was feeling, and let the child understand the learning from it by giving the confidence to the child that they have the solution to their own problems, conundrums, confusions, etc. Grandma was everybody's favorite. This is where I end my talk on this lighter note. And now I'm open to listening your stories, your questions, or any further discussions.
Thank you, Anurita. Thank you so much for this extremely insightful conversation. And as Anurita mentioned, now we are open to answering questions. So in case you have any questions, please use the chat box. If you have some story to share, then I'll be able to unmute you, and then you guys can go ahead and share your story. So the forum is yours now. You can go ahead and do that.
Ankita, I can see a question that has popped in.
Okay.
And she is a listener who said that I have some years of experience in the industry. Whatever you're saying is as human first and professional after that. But in corporate business doesn't, because corporate business doesn't run on emotions. So how to handle such situations? So I take that question, and I would say that many a time emotion, and I think that's a lot to do with the kind of society in which we kind of thrive, has to do with the way about being sad, showing tears, showing anger. So the negative side of emotions. Not really. That's not what is being. That's not what is expected from us at this point of time. We're not only talking about the negative side of emotions. We're even talking about the positive side of emotions. When was the last time you just liked something which was put up on the wall, a simple poster, but you just liked it? And you said, wow, this is great. Did you walk up to a colleague and say that, listen, I know you have worked on this. This is really looking nice, yeah? Maybe it's their day in, day out job to make posters, but it is looking nice. You enter office, and then, I mean, a lot of companies have started to work, and of course, they're all working with the health and safety measures in view. You enter office, and then there is a bottle of sanitizer kept right there. And you just tell your housekeeping person, thank you so much for thinking. I just opened the door. I did not have I did not think about it. And I used my hand to open the door as a matter of habit. But thank you for keeping this sanitizer right here. It really will go a long way. So these are small things. While dealing with your bosses, it's important that you connect with them and show them your emotion by gauging as much as you think they'll be able to accommodate. It's very important to modulate the level of emotions you're showing, good or bad, by understanding the level of assimilation that that person can do. The person may be very hard on the exterior and say that, no, 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 listen, it's just work, and we will only talk about work and we'll not talk about anything else. But then, have you tried to just send him or her a message on their birthday? Or just say that, I remember this sort of a conversation that we had today. I tried to just imbibe that in one of the things that we were doing. And I think it's going to make a difference. Thank you so much. We are all human beings at the end of it. If there are positive and negative emotions shown within balance, keeping the receiver in mind, like I said, hearing from the other side, I think that is still going to make a lot of difference, irrespective of whatever industry we work for.
Okay, I answered the question. In case you have any other questions, please feel free to use the chat box, guys, and Anurita will be answering the questions. Anurita, before people start asking, I had one question about the entire communication, brand communications, and how they have changed during the COVID times. Like, because as you see that all brands have certain things that they need to communicate with people, which is involving selling of products, services, all of that. But at the same time, they're also kind of understanding that people are not in the right position to buy or rent a lot of products and services. So they're trying to hear from their perspective and then kind of have a right mix of giving positive messages at the same time trying to sell their products and services. So in the communication part of it, when we're talking to the customers or the audiences, what is the healthy mix according to you, that we do have to sell our products and services, at the same time we have to make sure that the audience is in the right state of mind? So how do you kind of balance that entire thing?
Ankita, I think some examples, some organizations have been more exemplary than the others to really put it out there. And if I'm mentioning the right example, but a major car manufacturer, put in, and I'm sorry, I do not exact, I'm confused between two brands, which is why I'm refraining from taking that name right now. But they would always say that, our cars are the safest, our cars are the safest. And immediately after the pandemic hit, they said, currently the safest place to be is not in our cars, it is to be at home.
Right.
There have been players like Burger King and McDonald's who've come and joined hands together and appreciated each other. I mean, cutthroat competition is what we're talking. So yes, everybody has to sell, everybody has to still make the money, keep the machinery running, keep the profits going. But acts like these, messages like these, communicating to your people, showing that you realize what is important at this point of time, and therefore not breathing down somebody's neck and saying that but you still have to take it from us. That is the difference communication can bring. And of course there are still sales targets which are cutthroat and everything, and organizations and sales people are running behind those targets which are there. But from a brand and communications perspective, I think the aspect of ensuring that we put it out there how much we care about everyone, in the sense our customers, our employees, our NGO partners, academia, etc., how we work with all of them and how we show our concern, care towards all of them, and how their well-being is something which is of prime importance to us also. If we are able to achieve that, I think that's a long-term gain that we are going to see. The pandemic has come, it will go. We do not know, none of us know when, but it will go.
Right.
But all these organizations which are in business will continue to be in business.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have two more questions. I'm just going to read the first one.
Sure.
Over the course of time, the same communications tend to wear one down and mentally start tagging them as spam, even if the communications are relevant and would be engaging customer who is interacting with them for the first time. How do we ensure continued consistency and engagement in the frequency of communications? Yeah, this is critical.
Well, interesting. I think the answer lies in the fact that something which is not just valid for now, not just valid for during the pandemic, but has been valid throughout. So something which, and I will only specify it in one word, that is what has kept me engaged with this field, and that is novelty. I think by bringing novelty in your messaging, in the way in which you're communicating, two of these key aspects is something that you can keep people engaged on and on and on and on. If we talk about customer communication for that matter, if you think only sending regular emails to them, let's say you're working for an organization that specializes in running trainings, by sending the same email to them every Wednesday, these are the trainings for the week, these are the trainings for the week, that's going to wear them out. Have you tried any other means where you say that, okay, one thing is I'm going to send an email to them, but the other part is also, can I WhatsApp them something? Oh, I am sending an email to them now, but can I also put that as, along with a video where I'm talking about a testimonial? I'm not just saying that, okay, these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H are the list of my trainings, but there is somebody in the video who said that, with learning and development really not being so high on my priorities, I still decided to take a course. And that is a kind of has made a difference. So have we tried to use the same channels and reinvent the way in which we are doing it? And I think all of us in communications have that challenge and will be an ever prevalent challenge. If you're able to really find some novel ways of doing it and different timings of doing it. Don't send that email out on a Wednesday and see if it gets missed. If it does not get missed after 2 subsequent Wednesdays, it was not making a difference. But even if you get 4 calls saying that, no, listen, you haven't sent your schedule in a long time, I want to see your schedule, you know somebody was reading.
Correct.
And again, for some people, an email might work. For some people, a WhatsApp might work. For some people, a printed letter might work, which may not work too much in this situation. So, and for some people, maybe a phone call works. So, we really have to continuously evolve.
Right. There's another question from Sonika. She's asking how to boost healthy competition within teams and ignore favoritism.
Great. So, that is something which is very, very imperative to any leader. And any leader has a very high onus of doing that. Appreciating one team member does not mean that the other team members are not doing well. I read this book, and I'm sure a lot of us must have read that book in our B schools, which said about a 1-minute manager. A 1-minute manager who knows how much to reprimand, how much to appreciate, when to reprimand, and when to appreciate. I think if we're able to really crack that mix, we are able to ensure that there's healthy competition in the team and there's not favoritism. Now, yes, we may, as human beings, we may get along with some people more than we get along with others. But as a leader, as a team manager, the onus is so much on us that we do not let that get reflected in the way we work. It is so important that we do not try to show that, while A has done some good job, B and C is not are not their work is not being overshined, or their work is not being underwhelmed by this particular thing. So it's very, very important that even they get their due share of credit if they have done a good job. And sometimes, because we are happy, we are excited, and that is where emotion modulation is very important. We may go on and on and on about what a great job A has done without being respectful and mindful of the repercussion it will have on B and C. That is very important. And C may have unfortunately not delivered for some reason. But it's important that you have a private conversation with that person, understand, empathize, and bring him or her to a level where C is also a part of the celebration of the success of A and not jealous and does not feel threatened by it. Because if that happens, people will leave. People will not be engaged. There'll be mistrust in the organization. So it's very important that you modulate your emotions and you keep your connect with your respective people in a manner where you're not being perceived as partial or insensitive.
Correct. I don't see any more questions, but having said that, I'm sure if you have any more questions, if you want to connect with Anurita offline through maybe a LinkedIn or something, she'll be more than happy to take your questions one-on-one. So having said that, Anurita, thank you so much for taking out time and giving this really inspirational session over the weekend, so something to mull over during the weekend. And thank you so much, audience, for attending today's session. Any last words, Anurita, before we close in today?
Great. So, thank you for this opportunity, guys, because I think it really made me think. Like I said, the rut of work from home, work for home, it kind of really does not leave too much time for you to sit back and think. With this, I could really think, I could really uncover a lot of facets by reading and by really dwelling upon some times that I've spent in the last 4 months of lockdown. I'm sure everyone has this. I'm thankful to everybody who's attended. I'm available on LinkedIn as Anurita Solanki. So please reach out to me if you have any further questions. I would love to connect with you on that professional network. Thank you so much. It was really great interacting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.